So, hello everyone. I guess everything is working, and let me take a sip of water. Today I will be doing another skeleton. Who would have guessed? And the last week I have done this fella. It was Red Storm. So I also need to mute myself because I forgot I have it in here, but at least I know everything is working. So, the last time I did this fella, and now I randomized, where is he? The horror Archer. And this is the last Archer, the last horror that I have to make for this challenge. There are no more horrors to be done. So only like a bazillion different skeletons are left to be made. And hello, Michał. I was kinda hoping you will like call during the stream, but most likely you won't. So these are the two other horrors that I have done, the normal skeleton warrior and the horror captain. And today, as I said, I will be doing an archer. So since the theme of drawing the skeletons is kinda like, maybe not boring, but it's kinda exhausting at the point, like I wanted to draw some different monsters, at least maybe I will learn something. So for today archer, I decided to go pretty much with the same body type. Basically it will be more or less the same. I gathered some references and I decided to read a bit about archery, so basically to know something. And also this is kind of a cool thing, because as you can see, you don't really need to design anything in terms of archery. You basically can have like everything is already done, and a really cool bow. Looking bows were already done really long time ago, and a lot of cool arrowheads are out there, so you can pretty much just copy and paste those things into your designs. And in real life it kind of does matter what type of an arrowhead you are using in games. Not really that much. So without any further ado, I guess we could go and proceed with the new skeleton. And I found these two poses as references because I don't really want to like invent anything that hard. And I really like the first pose, like this one, because it's kind of like wonky. It looks kind of like odd that he's like standing kind of with like this dumb position. He's like trying to shoot something, and it looks kind of cool. I guess it kind of fits the character of the skeletons. They are a little bit awkward, and they are a little bit like not posing nicely. But I also really like this pose. It looks a bit cooler, I feel. Especially it will kind of match these two guys a little bit more, so I guess I will go with this one. And also to make things a bit more easier on me with the bones and everything and the directions on the ribcage, I used the Skelly app. Let me write it down in here, by Proco. Skelly app. It costs like $5 or something like this, and you basically get a fully posable skeleton with all the bones and everything. And you can also use like this simplified geometrical type of guy. So drawing with this app, drawing skeletons is relatively easy because you can pretty much see everything, how it behaves. And also it allows you to like set up the light, so you can more easily see how it looks like. So maybe I will show you through the cam. I don't know if you can see the skeleton, but basically if I switch to this guy, I get something like this, like basically the geometry. And now I can play with like the, holy shit, with like this button, and now I can like light it differently. So it's kind of cool because if you understand what is happening with the light and everything, then the drawing is pretty much easier. And this type of references are always a nice thing to have. So I guess I will like lit it in a way I like. I will make another reference, just screenshotted it, and I will send it to myself. And it will be relatively similar, I guess. So let me just copy it. And now I basically have more than I need. to make a skeleton, another one. So I will start with drawing. And if anyone has any questions whatsoever, and if anyone wants to like show me any type of your artworks or whatever, just feel free to post them as links in here. I don't know if YouTube allows links, but I know that Twitch does. So yeah, that's pretty much all that I wanted to say about it. And the ideas also that I want kinda to introduce into the post of this guy is, well, let me just take... Did it crashed already? Wow. Photoshop is really fast. It already managed to crash. So let me reopen it. Yeah, so basically what I also wanted to include in this guy is to give it a little bit more character by kind of distorting the anatomy of it in the back area. So since he is like holding a bow and this guy is really thin, it does not have like tons of muscles and everything, I kind of want the pose to kind of show that all the like basically the force needed to pull the bow is kind of like distorting the anatomy of the skeleton. So it will have like this hinged back a little bit more. So basically the spine gets kind of distorted and everything. And I kind of feel it will like bring a little something like interesting to the entire skeleton. And basically for the pose, as I said, I will copy from the reference. So something will happen in here. The scapula will be like visible. And this area with the scapula is really cool because you can like show a lot of cool things happening in here. And the pelvis, Elvis. So I guess in terms of like drawing this skeleton will be relatively easy, I feel. So, as I said, not much is going on in here. And since it's quite thin monster, the rendering also won't be that big of a deal. But still I want them to be a little bit more like mummified instead of like full skeletons. So I want some muscles still to be here, but they will be like really thin and really like underdeveloped in a sense. But the hunched back will be there. And the hunched back will also like create this nice opportunity for the whole silhouette to be a little bit more interesting. So it can have a little bit more like collapsed type of ribs and collapsed stomach, because these guys also have this like really sucked in stomachs with the intestines basically protruding from the stomach. So I kinda like the visual thing that it does to the character. And I don't really care if the arms or the hands will be a little bit too big or too long or something like this. Basically, the longer the arm will be, the kind of more creepy it will look like. So I'm all for making these guys look creepy. And I was also kind of thinking about like bringing something a little bit more interesting visually to these guys. I kind of felt like maybe floating parts of their body will look cool, that they are not like entirely connected, that they are kind of like somewhat etheric, I guess this is the word. But I guess it will be a little bit too off from the original things that I have in here. And I kind of wanted to keep everything like a little bit more intact. Now I will only need like a reference for the ass, because these bones will really show through in here if it's like a mummified type of a guy. So I really want to show all the things protruding in here. And for the quad muscles, really not much will happen in here. So like really thin things should be in here. I even think the arm is still a little bit too muscular. And the second hand in here will be a little bit more like this. So he's like holding the string. And the rest of the arm is basically hidden. Since I kinda wanted him to be a little bit more hinged back, I can show a little bit more of this arm, so it won't like disappear behind the body. So whatever you need to do with the illustration to make it look a little bit more interesting, just feel free to do it. In the end, the reference is there only like to help you, not to guide the entire thing. So yeah. The creepy ass feet. The feet are kind of like unnaturally big. If you have like this extremely thin legs, I kind of feel the leg is a little bit too long. It shouldn't be shorter. But this area should be a bit longer. Maybe it will like get a little bit more bend to it. A little bit more like this S curvature going on. It's also like a thing to make your drawings a little bit nicer, because if you have like those two shapes together, they are not like really interesting. But if you introduce like a slight bend, at least it makes the whole thing a little bit more pleasant to look at, I guess. So I kind of will try to like introduce some of this happening in here. So a little bit of a calf muscles. And if you don't feel like the perspective is right or the proportion is right, just feel free to transform everything, not that much, like adjust it slightly. I feel like tops. Okay, it should look like this. A little bit more collapsed in here, a bit of a smaller ass. And this guy got some rugs, and I forgot about the reference. Where is the quiver? Is on his right leg, I guess. So the quiver won't be visible in here. So basically, as I see, it's not on the side that the arm is pulling. So I will only like suggest the quiver that the quiver is in here, with all the arrows inside, so it will add a little bit more points of interest to the whole silhouette and everything. And actually it can have like kind of like protruding spine a little bit more, and I will maybe warp it a bit. So all the arrows will be in here. And for the bow, because I was kind of searching for the different cool looking bow types, I guess this one is in here. I found some really cool references. Basically, I think it should kind of have like this shitty type of a bow where pretty much no money will be spent on this guy. So if you are like a low tier skeleton, you won't get like a fancy bow, pretty much with the same reasoning with the previous monsters. Like, you are not really worth investing into, because most likely you will die like pretty much on the spot. So I guess you will just get like the really shitty type of a bow with like a really normal curve to it, something that kind of looks like it could work, but nothing too fancy. I was kind of thinking about some sort of a long bow or something like this, but then again, you are kind of fighting these guys in the catacombs. So I guess like a short bow will perform a bit better, but I don't necessarily think these guys really care about the performance. I kind of think they care more about being able to shoot something. So yeah, let me just rotate back this guy. So basically this part of a bow goes behind the body, which is nice. And in here there will be some strings. So basically he's kind of pulling at the bow already. And as I said, I don't really care about him like making the good pull on it, like to be utilizing the bow in a good way, in a sense. Do I want, yeah. Because he is a skeleton, see, he do not really give a shit about like the techniques and everything. Like as far as you can just pull on the bow and the arrow will shoot, then it is okay. But I kind of want the bow to go all through, so all the way to the back. I feel like it will look a bit nicer. And also if you're kind of like struggling with like placing stuff like this, you can always do this like in a smart way. So basically just draw the half of a bow that you want to draw, and basically in here there will be an arrow, vertical, duplicate, just basically duplicate the shape. And if you have the shape like this, slightly just transform it and just place it in the perspective however you wish it would to be placed. So it will kind of take care about all the curvatures and everything for you, and most likely it will look better. So you can just play with the shape a bit. And also if this were a smart object, then it will look a bit nicer, because I could like still kind of change it, but I kind of like the way it kind of curves. So yeah, it will look like this. Slightly reduce the curving in here. He will hold it like in here. I want this place to be kind of like even. Like the comics, look at this, look at that. What did you get? Yeah, I really like this comic. Yeah, it's a nice one. Yeah, so basically this is how you can approach like doing bows and everything. And I don't know how much do you need to care about the strings on the bow and everything, because I have no, like, I used the bow like several times in my life, but I don't know how much you actually need to care about it for it to not fall apart. But I think the bows could be a problem for skeletons. I don't think the string is something that is extremely like resilient to everything. So I guess they could be quite good with destroying them. And the only thing that I pretty much found about all the arrowheads and everything, the thinner and the more pointy it is, the better it is for piercing armor. The bigger it is, the basically for the bigger things it is meant to be. I don't know for what type of a thing this one is. I don't know, it just has a cool shape. I kind of thought maybe just giving this type of a shape to an arrowhead will be cool, just from like the designer point of view. So it looks cool. I don't know what it does, to be honest. I found some sort of a page that had all the arrowheads explained, and it says the H1 is function is hunting. So I guess it was done like it was made like this for hunting. I don't know what and how it is better in hunting, but I guess it kind of fits to the idea that these guys are kind of hunting. Like they are not about like killing you as fast as possible. They are kind of all about like hurting you. So maybe this type of an arrowhead will work. And maybe just giving some sort of a tip inside also could be nice. So the arrow will kind of like pierce attached to you, if it will manage to hit you. So I guess it looks a little bit more interesting than just like the pointy stuff, but The pointy stuff also is kind of interesting because it is simple, and I don't think these guys would use something that is like extremely sophisticated. Maybe like having a huge arrowhead will be fine, but it looks kind of like cartoony. So maybe I will just leave it, or maybe like make an arrow, like some spikes on it, so it's kind of rusty. I can easily imagine like these skeletons being there terrify you. So if you would see like a really creepy ass looking arrow, maybe there will be a little bit more terrifying. So like shit like this with some like spine spikes. Let's see, maybe it will be enough. And since they are horrors, they all have like the screaming faces. Because they like to scream. Like the holes in here, and the cranial bones and everything, the empty eyes. And for the quiver, because usually as far as I know they are mounted on some sort of a belt or something like this, I was not really feeling like giving this guy a belt, because again, if there are like thousands of skeletons, you don't really worry about like equipping them all in all the nice and top looking shit. So I guess he will just have like some racks as this one does. And I kind of feel maybe giving him some arrowheads actually poking through his body. Maybe it will be like a nice thing to have. And for the fletching, a new word, I also think they don't really take care about all the arrows that they have. And the extreme type of the fletching that I found on the web is a flu fletching, which basically it's called like this flu. It's kind of funny. It's basically making the arrow go really short. So I don't think these guys would have like the nicest fletching on the arrows. I can kind of imagine it being like all torn apart, all destroyed and everything. So I can imagine the arrows do not fly really that well. So just an interesting thing to be. And maybe still, if they are like practicing like shooting arrows and everything, maybe they are like practicing on like their own kind. So maybe this will kind of also explain why he has like a lot of arrows sticking inside of him. I have his stuff. No. And these skeletons are basically useless, so they are kinda like the skeleton pussies. They are not like a really dangerous enemies, especially like since with all the skin and everything they weigh like 10 kilograms or something like this. So it's not really an enemy that you will be afraid of, to be honest. Like they are supposed to be scary, but in reality they are really not that scary. And I was also thinking about giving them crossbow, because crossbow is like the hacking way into shooting, because it's like basically way easier than a bow, but there were no like crossbow archers in Diablo, at least not in the first part, so I won't be doing that. I don't really feel on the face, it does not have like this horror type of a feel to it. It looks kind of surprised, So let me only grab mummified face. Some references. Open mouth. So I will have something creepy like this to be a reference. This is creepy. So basically some sort of a mummified face I found on the web, and it makes the job done. This is like a really simple, like creepy thing to apply. And I kinda want them to look like really creepy. Mummies are kinda scary. And in here, there's, I guess, even better shot. And that kinda even fits a little bit more to the whole pose, so I basically will go with this one. And I guess the most creepy part about it is, like, this is, like, it used to be a live human being, so it's really weird that we, like, kinda, like, just now look at somebody who, like, used to live, like, longest time ago, and to just use them as references. Like, who would have happened that maybe, like, in, what, 10,000 years or something like this, someone will actually use your body for as a reference for his painting or her painting. So it's really, like, odd thing to happen. To be honest, I don't know. I don't think there were any crossbow skeletons in Diablo 2. I don't even think there were crossbows, like, as a weapons in Diablo 2, to be honest. They were definitely in Diablo 3 because of the Demon Hunter. She basically is the crossbow. But I don't really think Diablo 2 had any crossbows. There was one crossbow in Diablo 1. It is a unique item. And I remember my dad was not believing me that I found a crossbow in Diablo 1 because there is no, like, item type like crossbow. But there is only one crossbow, and it's called the Needler. And I remember when I found it, and my father was not believing me that I found a crossbow in Diablo. And this is the Needler, and this is the only crossbow, as far as I know, in Diablo 1. And this is a unique short bow, which is kind of cool. So I guess they do. Let me see, only for Diablo 2 crossbows. Oh yeah, of course, no, there were bolts. Oh, I forgot. But I never used crossbows, I guess. Like, actually never played with them, so this will kinda, like, yeah. Yeah, but this is like the only crossbow in Diablo 1, so a bit of a funny thing to do. And I remember the unique scavenger dropped it, and I even, let me just check, Diablo 1 scavenger, because there are like 3 unique scavengers in Diablo 1, and I remember the yellow one, the unique yellow one dropped it, and the unique yellow one is El Chupacabra, which is also kind of funny. So the only monster that ever dropped me a crossbow in Diablo 1, well, is the El Chupacabra. At some point I will be drawing him, so I will make sure I will give him a crossbow to this dog, a unique plague eater. Yeah, Chupacabra is in Diablo 3. But the more you know. Okay, so I guess basically the sketch is done. Now I will make the nice drawing on top of it. So let's just get closer to it And also before like making a drawing on top of it, I will enlarge the entire sketch because I kinda want to have a bit more place. And as also you can see, this is pretty much how usually my workplace looks like. It's really crowded. Back in the days I really used to care about like having the biggest space available for drawing. I basically do not give a flying fuck about it. Now as far as I have some references around me, good. And the second crash for the Photoshop. It's really easy to lag Photoshop while working with many different layers. Okay. So again, usually when I start drawing anything, I start with the most important part of the thing. So in this case, it's the face. Usually, if you are drawing anything with like a face, the face will be the most important part because we usually just search for the face as the first thing, pretty much. So I want to spend... Yeah, I heard about PureRef, but to be honest, the less applications I can use, the better it is for me. I prefer to have everything in Photoshop, to be honest, because like I can really quickly like navigate through it, and as I said, the less things I have to have open at the same time, the better it is. Also because of the screen capture, because I'm capturing only Photoshop screen, not the full screen, to prevent like some unwanted things to happen. You won't be able to show all the references, so I would have to like switch back and forth, and it will actually be kind of a problem, I guess. But as I said, with the face, I kind of want to spend all my energy, or like the fresh energy, on drawing something that is important. And then, for example, when I like reach the fits, which are not really that important for this drawing, then I will basically just kind of dash through them because I won't have like much power to do them, and it will kind of make the natural it will kind of look a little bit more natural in terms of a drawing. So the not important part won't be as finished as the important parts are. So the detail distribution across the entire thing will be a little bit better, I guess. And hello, Mikołaj. I also really like this creepy, it's like back hairs that he has on his face. It looks really cool. And also recently I had some problems with recording the screen and everything with NVIDIA Shadowplay, because I have been using like the GeForce Experience recording for like forever, like always. And recently it has been like randomly stopping. Like I was recording for like something, and 1 minute it stops recording, 10 minutes it stopped recording. And I contacted NVIDIA support, like how to resolve this problem, and I hope it is resolved now, but shit is really not working at the moment. So there will be no new videos, like recordings and everything, until I like manage to fix everything. And today also I will be like testing a different software for screen recording, but I just need to make sure that it is able to record in like 4K and everything, because the vast majority of the things that I do are recorded in 4K. So yeah. And for the cross-hatching that I kinda like to implement in these drawings, I usually try to kinda like suggest the direction of a surface with the lines. So like the small lines that I'm doing are not kinda like really random. I kinda try to like introduce some shapes with them. So in here they don't go like this, they will go kinda like this. They will wrap around the forms. And I removed the small hairs from the back of the head because it made him look kinda less creepy, I guess. So I think going bald is the way to achieve the creepiness for this guy. And I really like this small flat jawline. So it's basically almost not existing. Like this small incision in here. And for the bones, because I want to have like some bony protrusions in here. What happened? I kinda will use this reference because it basically shows me where the bones will show through. And also this guy, because I want to see like the bare minimum for the muscles that I need to have on this silhouette. Hello, Boiler. And for this guy, I want to keep the light from like the top left because the final drawing was supposed to go like into the other direction, so like this. This is the orientation that I want this painting to have, so I will just flip it now so I won't forget about to make it like later. And now I also kind of want to introduce some like really deep shadows where the blacks will, the entire black parts will be, that are actually black. Let me just downgrade the whole drawing into black because it was not black before. Because it actually looked a bit nicer when it was not like fully black. But as I said, since everything that I have drawn previously was pretty much entirely black, it will stay like this. And this is also a really nice reason to use all the references and everything, because like you will get a little bit more understanding, a little bit better understanding on the things that you want to make. I kind of want to see how I drew this guy, so I will keep the style a bit more similar. Okay, so I used a little bit more of like this organically flowing lines. You go. Pretty much all the deep shadows will be in here. I kinda don't want to like overwork the deep shadows because later I kinda also want to introduce some I want to introduce some shading with like the actual layers, so it won't not everything will be shaded like a comic, if it makes sense. So here's like the tricep. It will be much thinner. And also from these references, I really like the way the skin behaves on something that is like really dry. So it's not really like bending nicely, it kind of bends basically like a really thick and basically like a really thick leather. So it does not give like this nice natural looking bends, it kind of gives like this creepy ass like surfaces that do not really represent what's underneath it. So I feel it is a really nice way to approach to draw this guy. And here there will be visible a little bit more of the sternum. And like the entire chest area for this guy will be kind of collapsing. Oh, I forgot also that I make the arm really long. And kind of gave it like the normal proportion for all the tendons and everything, so I need to stretch it out. But I need to remember that I do not want this arm to be thick. I want it to be really thin. I want it kind of to be like without many muscles on it. And the back muscles in here will kind of behave like this. Hello, RL Custom 2021. That's a fancy nickname. I always kind of wonder from where nicknames like this come from. Like, what is the idea behind the nickname? Usually. Like, I have been using the TYPHON art or the TYPHON for so long, basically because it was like cool monster. That's pretty much all. I don't even remember what type of nicks I was using like on different pages, like really back in the days. Usually it was just like a name of a character that I really like from a book or from a movie or whatever. Oh, okay. So it does make a lot of sense then. Nice. One friend of mine also is customizing sneakers. He's drawing on Air Forces, Nike Air Forces. I don't know if this is the company that makes Air Forces. I don't know a lot about sneakers. Oh, nice. I will check it out later. So basically you take the existing things and you draw on them, or you design your own things for the streetwear. I guess it's kind of hard to make. Yeah, Air Force. I guess this is like the #1 sneakers to like customize. I always like when someone is customizing like sneakers, I usually see them drawing on Air Forces. And in here also you can see how useful this reference is for the direction of all the ribs and whatnot. Kind of feel like the expression is not there. For all the arrow nips, there will be like some wood protruding from his body. So the basic like story idea for it will be like, since there are archers, maybe they just practice like shooting. If we could say they are like even aware of the fact that they need to practice, but maybe they are like practice shooting arrows and using bows on their like on themselves. So maybe they just like have some things like protruding from them. Or maybe since they are like really stupid, because this can also be a case when they like 40 of them at the same spot and they are trying to shoot at something, maybe they just simply shoot themselves. Oh, nice. It's really interesting. If you have a link to your shop or anything, feel free to drop it in here. I'll gladly take a look at it later when I finish the stream. Yeah, and here are some intestines. Would you balance traditional with digital art regarding training? To be honest, in my opinion, it's way easier to train art on traditional medias because the amount of things you can do are limited. There's not like in Photoshop, basically you can do everything that you can imagine, and you can erase everything and you can like change everything, and this is really cool and this is a good thing, but it also can create like a fuckload of problems because you can basically undo everything. So most likely you won't see your mistakes, you will forget what you have done wrong, and it is okay to some degree, but it's kind of hard to learn certain skills on the Photoshop. So I would say the best balance for learning how to draw and how to paint is to practice all the fundamentals on the pen and paper and everything, and only then like trying to do the same things on the Photoshop. But to get familiar with a topic, with a theme, I would say pen and paper all the way. For the colors, that really depends. For example, in my case, I don't really know how to use like paints and everything. So everything that I know about color, I have learned pretty much digitally, but from the like books and videos about traditional medias. Oh, great. This is also the case for the streams. People join and just sketch alongside. But yeah, coming back with the balance about digital art and traditional art, I would say if you like and if you want to in the end draw in the digital medias, just draw in them. Like there is no better way to like practice it than actually practicing it. And you will get better at digital medias even if you only draw on like pen and paper, because the basic idea is pretty much the same. The only problem with digital medias is you have, I guess, a little bit less control over the tool. So you can do a little bit more like fancy things with pens and pencils and everything. In Photoshop, you're kind of limited to what the brush allows you to make. But to answer the question about the balance, I don't think there's like a one way. I would say just try practicing certain topics in the Photoshop, for example, let's say in the Photoshop, and see if it works with you. If it does not work with you, then simply try to learn the same thing on traditional medias, because sometimes you will need to just switch the tool. Kind of lost the train, the thought. Just see if it works for you. If you feel like you are learning a lot and you are getting more comfortable with drawing and painting in Photoshop, then it's completely fine, continue doing it. If you feel drawing straight lines, for example, is a problem for you in Photoshop, try drawing straight lines on a piece of paper. If you can't do that on a piece of paper, then try drawing everything on the piece of paper first, because I would say this is a little bit more basic skill. And then try to do the same exercise on in Photoshop, I would say. But I never really thought about balance between traditional or digital. Like some folks will just go full digital, some folks will go full traditional, just whatever like moves their gears, I guess. So yeah, I guess that's really just up for you. Just be honest with yourself, and if you feel you are not like developing as you wish you could, just change medias. I can easily say drawing traditionally really improved my digital skills, but I can see how I apply a lot of like things I do in Photoshop in my traditional medias also. So like a certain tricks or the workflow kinda is similar for me to some degree. Make you faster if you're good at traditional art. Yeah, because like again, you can like erase everything and you can like basically rework pretty much everything that you are doing. Like you are not that restricted with the tool. So I guess to some degree it is faster. Like, but also that kind of depends. In my case, for example, when I am drawing traditionally, I can focus for much longer. So like I have a hard time, for example, drawing for like 8 hours straight on like on a graphic tablet, because I just don't feel like drawing for 8 hours straight in the Photoshop. Also, since I can constantly see a clock, but while I'm drawing in traditional media, sometimes, now not really, because I don't really draw much in traditional medias nowadays, but I remember like I had some days where I was just sitting for like 8 hours without a break whatsoever, and I had like no problems with it. Personally, I think it's impossible to do the same thing for me in digital. I just need a little bit more breaks in these medias. But yeah, definitely the better you are as a traditional artist, the quicker, the faster you will get in digital, because in the end it all boils down to the skills you have. If you can draw, it does not really matter what you are drawing with. Like even if you have like the most expensive graphic tablet and the most expensive gear and the best like software and everything, if you don't know how to draw and if you don't have the skills to draw, then it won't help at all. Like you need to build an entire like skill base to be able to draw something cool. So yeah, that's pretty much why I don't really think there is like a huge distinction between those things. Like again, that really depends what you want to achieve. In the end. But I know many people who, for example, love to draw on iPad or in Photoshop, but they hate to draw on a piece of paper because they just like don't enjoy it. So it's just how they have. Usually it's related to like not being confident enough in your skills or just not having like the Control-Z options and whatnot, but some people just don't enjoy drawing on paper. Like personally, I, for example, really hate sketching on paper. Like, okay, I can sketch on a piece of paper. I really like having sketchbooks, but I don't really enjoy drawing in sketchbooks. But I really enjoy like sketching and drawing like all this like studies and everything in Photoshop. So instead of like drawing traditionally those type of things, I like to do them like digitally. And this is just how I prefer to sketch. But to be honest, I feel like, as I said, it boils down to not feeling confident enough to draw in sketchbook. I usually don't feel confident that much when I draw in sketchbook because, again, there's no like Control-Z. If something bad happens to the sketch that I really like, kind of sucks that I cannot rework it. So it is kind of a bummer. But again, the more I would practice, the better I would be at it. But currently, like learning how to draw everything like digitally and like developing those skills is much more important for me. So I will like continue drawing everything in the Photoshop. I guess it's just the skill that I need a bit more. But when I, for example, once decided to like design some monsters and I decided to draw them like traditionally and then scan the drawings and then upload them into the Photoshop and then draw and paint on top of them, I felt like this was the most enjoyable like workflow that I have done in a really long time. But again, it's much more time consuming because like basically just drawing traditionally is a bit more time consuming, I think. Since you have to make all these preparations and everything, you have to like plan what you are going to draw if it needs to be like at least somehow nice. So much more thinking needs to go into the actual drawing. 1, 2, 3, 4, the thumb. I definitely can also say that if I like have a really long break from drawing traditionally, and when I start drawing again traditionally, because sometimes like I do in my workplace where I teach, I mean usually pretty much every week I draw something on like the blackboard and whatnot. Basically it's a whiteboard for the students, and I draw on their artworks and everything, but I really rarely make like the traditional finished pieces at the moment. So, but I can safely and easily say when I actually start drawing traditionally, I enjoy it really much because it's a really nice break from all the digital medias and everything. Like I feel much more restricted, but in the same way, I kind of feel a little bit more like, let's say, free, or I feel like the freedom of movement is a bit better. So that really depends. And the bonus for it is that basically if I get like bored with drawing digitally, and at some point I guess I will do, I will get bored with it, then I can always like come back to traditional medias and everything and just re-enjoy doing art and everything by basically doing the same thing but in a different medium. At some point I also wanted to learn how to paint, like with the actual paints. I had like several tries to start doing it, but I really hate all the preparation that is needed to start painting, like bringing water, mixing colors. I just get so used to like the comfort of using Photoshop where I basically just select a color and it's there, it's done, that I actually kinda stopped learning how to paint, or I not even started doing it properly, because just digital is much more pleasant for me. Move this guy slightly a bit to the top. Also for a guy like this, if you are drawing and you want to make it a bit cooler, then simply freeze your Photoshop once again. But what I wanted to say is try taking like a really thin pen and then draw like some additional surface details with like a really thin brush. So as you can see, it adds a little bit more texture to the drawing. Now I turned off the underlay drawing, and it kind of allows me to like add some like dots and some skin patches and everything. I tried using markers, but the markers, I do enjoy drawing with markers sometimes, especially with all the vehicles and hard surfaces and everything. But again, the process that kind of you need to take is really like a lot depends on the process that you take. You need to perform some actions in order to achieve like a good looking results, and the freedom of like what you can do with them is kind of limited. I never really liked colored pencils like crayons and everything. Like I just do not enjoy having like this not nice looking colors most of the times. It's a little bit more illustrative type of a work, and I never like really enjoyed it. And the thing with the markers is in Poland they're extremely fucking expensive, like because I do live in Poland, and usually like a pro marker or something like this costs around like 14 to 20 złota per like one marker, and it's basically like one big drawing that you can make with this marker, and it's like dry, it's finished, it's done, which kind of sucks. So it's really expensive medium, I would say, that do not really present for me any like any benefits whatsoever. Like I won't benefit with the markers at all at this point. So this is kind of like the reason why I don't enjoy drawing with markers. But again, it can be like just caused with the fact that I am so used to drawing with Photoshop that it's really hard to convince me that other like medias are fun anymore. Especially since like pretty much for always I have been teaching and I have been taught in a school to draw on like big formats. Usually like the typical format for me is like B2, so it's like 50 or 70 centimeters, I guess, something like this. And basically to finish one artwork with markers, it will kind of mean that you have to like use like 4 or 5 markers to make like one drawing, and it's not really worth it, I would say. Yeah, that's right. I mean, if someone is a traditional artist, it's still like an amazing thing to have, because people, I would say people will always enjoy traditional medias much more, because it's just like better to look at when someone is actually drawing with pencils. Like you can kind of feel the artistry a little bit more. With digital, I would say, even though I am mostly working in digital medias, it kind of feels artificial. Like everything kind of feels a little bit artificial. I would say the traditional medias are much more alive with the end product that you are having. And the fact that you are having something that is kind of like physical. This is also the problem that I always had with digital medias, that you do not really end up with anything physical, and the print do not really feel the same way the drawing does. And also it kind of connects to the topic of finding a balance, because and also this is why I really recommend to train drawing with traditional medias, because after like training for like 10 hours, 11 hours, or for like a week, for a month, for half of a year, you will actually see all the things that you have produced. You will see like the paper, like stacks, like tons of papers, like basically being everywhere and just like piling on top of each other, and you will see how much you actually have done, and it will be kind of encouraging for you to like see all the things being there and just like taking up space. Where in digital, to be honest, even though I know it's not the case, because you cannot pretty much see all your artworks at the same time unless you like print them, but if you like finish 40 studies or something like this, and then you decide to like leave them on a drive, and even though you like made like a shitload of artworks and you like really studied a lot, you painted a lot, you won't see those things because they will be hidden like in the folder, and they basically won't occupy any physical space, and it can lead kinda to like a decreased morale. I don't know how to pronounce it. The golden eagle above your head will get sad, because you will feel like you have not done much. And this is how I really often felt, especially at the beginning when I was just starting with all the digital medias and everything. Even though I have been drawing a lot, at least in my opinion back days, I never felt like this fulfillment out of drawing, because as I said, I have not seen the things that I have drawn constantly. while it was never a case with traditional medias. So this is also like one of the biggest reasons why I highly suggest to practice with traditional medias. And even though I can safely say that I, for example, understand perspective and everything on, like, I would say a really advanced beginner level, and I do not have any problems whatsoever with starting like perspective like oriented pieces on traditional medias. I always have some problems with perspective in the Photoshop. Something in my brains do not really click right with drawing like in perspective in Photoshop. Like, I know how to use grids and everything, yada yada, but I do not feel the like freedom. I always kind of feel a bit restricted while I am trying to draw in Photoshop. And also I'm talking mostly about like a perspective, like architectural type of pieces, because this is pretty much where the perspective matters the most if you are drawing them. I will give this guy some creepy ass like banded like arrowhead with some like spines and spikes and everything. So if you get hit by it, maybe it won't kill you like right away, but definitely it will be like a painful experience. For the lines like this, I do not expect the arrow that is underground and that is held by a skeleton to be in like the best shape, so I'm completely fine and okay with the arrow being like slightly bent or just not being like in a good shape whatsoever. So it can kinda look a bit more off. It can be thinner, thicker in some parts, in some places. And the fletching will also be not the nicest thing. Kinda be like the flu arrows. And the bottom line of the arrow will be a bit thicker because it is the area that will be in the shadows. So it will give the entire thing a little bit more cleaner read. And for the bow, because the bow will have its thickness, bow I will go with something like this, and then I will duplicate this shape to give it, well, give it like a proper thickness. And then I can duplicate this, well, I can duplicate this shape again. So then it will have like the perspective added to it. So basically I duplicate the same shape 3 times and later I will like slightly rework it. So for example, in here I expect the bow to be a bit thicker. Does it go? Yeah. And I really like the thing that is happening in here. So basically the bow in this area, like in the middle part of it, is kind of like entangled with something, like with some sort of a string or stuff like this. It kind of feels like something that a skeleton could use. Like it looks cheap visually as a cheap solution just to make a bow a bit thicker in the hand area. or the part in the back. Basically the same story happens. Select the shape. I need to remember about the perspective that it will happen. So this one will go to the top. And then the ball, wait, I need to have like the third. Whoops. And then the third part will be like in here. So for example, this part in here will get like really thin. It will almost be invisible. So here it is. Now I would like to add a quiver. Yep. I mean, like at some point there had to be like a skeleton that used to be named Timmy. So I guess it is a perfectly fine name for the skeleton archer. And if I were to like show the entire guy like from the other side, if the quiver would be in the front, then I had this idea of like not kinda like wrapping the quiver into like his bones and everything. I kind of had the idea to kind of like nail it to his body, so the quiver basically will be permanently mounted to his body, so he won't lose it or something like this. But I guess from this angle, the actually like the wrapping it with some like cloth, some like stripes and everything will just visually make a bit more sense. It will basically be impossible to show that it is like nailed down to him. I want to like rotate this part because I kind of want to show that the quiver is going like this direction. So this is like the angles of the things that it should have. And again, I'm not a specialist. I have no idea pretty much how the quiver looks like. I can imagine it being like just a simple tube. Let me just search for the reference. Quiver. But basically it is a really simple tube. So nothing too fancy will happen in here. The only thing that is cool is it getting a bit thinner to the end. So it is okay. Of course, I could design like a better looking quiver or something like this just for the sake of designing it. But again, the basics monsters get the most basic shit you can imagine. Only if you are like a boss, or if your health bar is like golden, or if your name is displayed in a golden lettering. Only then you get to choose like a really cool quiver that kind of reflects your character and everything. If you are like a basic ass skeleton, then you get the basic ass things. And some arrows will be like coming off in here. Hold on. Whoops. So I can imagine this guy like having a really different set of arrows. So not every arrow is like consistent in length and everything. Some of them I can imagine just being like sticks without the fletching. Where is the word? crashed the Photoshop again. It's amazing what Photoshop manages to do with its software. It always cracks me how easily it crashes and how easily it is to like freeze the entire thing. And this is pretty much happening with every single software out there. I kind of feel the more updates they do to like introduce new things, the more shit they break. Like, I don't remember having problems with Photoshop like 5 years ago. Like, basically it was working, and that's all that was important. Now, like, to have a week without a problem, it is a holiday, to be honest. Okay, so basically I feel like the basic drawing is kind of like done. I do need to rework the line weights and everything, but I will have much easier time with reworking all the line weights when I actually see the silhouette. So where actually there is something like drawn and shaded in here. Let me just connect the string. So I don't want the string to be like this, like thin line. I will add like some like texture to it, so it will look a little bit more like all destroyed and like jagged. But at the same time, it will add a bit more thickness to it, and it will look hopefully a little bit more realistic. Here, okay. Yeah, so I can imagine he is not holding the bow properly, but who am I to judge him? And now let me basically choose some color to work on the silhouette. Add something on the top of the quiver. I don't know, what do you mean by it? By the top of the quiver. But definitely I will add some things while I actually like block down the silhouette, because this is like the only way to see how the entire silhouette looks like, and if it looks interesting and where it should have a little bit more things to it, so it's not like the final things. Yeah, for like additions like fur and everything, like again, they might look like a bit interesting because they will like add something to the drawing, but I really like to kind of justify every single decision. So if I have to think how, like for example, this monster could get a quiver, like from where he could obtain a quiver, I can imagine it was made like most likely by some sort of like made out of a skin of some sort, most likely of someone who died in the catacombs, or maybe from other monsters, or basically who gave it to him. If he died with it, then maybe it would have some like fur on it. But usually at the beginning I try to stay really vanilla with everything that I give to these guys, and only later I try to like justify adding some like style things to them, because like adding 4 will kind of suggest that every single one of these monsters has like fur on their quivers. And this is kind of not the feeling that I want to go with, because if we imagine this guy being in a game, let's say in a game, and you will see like 40 of them at the same time, I can imagine only like 5 of them would actually have some sort of a fur on their quivers. But I kind of want to go with the most basic guy with the cheapest equipment out there. But again, this is a thing to reconsider later. Because if I block the entire silhouette, I can see how the shape basically reads. And if I decide that I need visually something in here that will like develop the shape, then completely fine. But as I said, I will go there soon. I kind of like to avoid unnecessary details in the places when I don't feel like they will like benefit to the entire silhouette. And also for additions like 4, I also keep in mind the thing that, for example, there is also a different type of a skeleton that is called corpse captain. And I have only done one corpse skeleton at the moment, but I kind of want them to be a little bit more fleshy, like with all the like fleshy additions to them. And I kind of feel like maybe adding 4 will be a better thing for them to have, because they are like visually known for wearing flesh, and flesh really nicely go with the fur, pretty much. The horror guys are a bit more simple in a sense. They are just like mummified spooky skeletons with some thickness to them. So the idea on the 4 is nice, but I don't think it will work nicely in here. It will be a bit easier to justify on a different design. And also this is like one of the topics that I covered like several times already, about the look of the most basic monsters. Usually a lot of the games and the movies, mostly games, go kind of over the top with how epic, let's say, the most basic mobs look like. Like in Diablo 1, this is the thing that I really liked. The basic monsters basically look like shit. They just look cheap, they look easy to kill, they do not look dangerous, but in a group they are dangerous, they can be dangerous. And the more underground you go, the more complex the monsters you encounter, the bigger the monsters are, the better equipped they are. Basically it makes more sense. And for example, the most dangerous monster is basically like the Blood Knight and the Steel Lords and everything. They are just like powerful, and they are like fully equipped heavy metal soldiers. So yeah. So yeah, the thing with like the guards and everything is nice, and I completely understand it and I completely dig this idea. But again, this will kind of require me to, I would say, I think it would require me to first have a design of a guard. So I will know what I need to pretty much destroy, because like just painting destroyed equipment is like kind of boring. I can do it nicely or I can like do it not nicely. It kind of like depends, but it will be really hard to tell some sort of a story with it. And if I would know how the guards looked when they are alive, then it's completely fine. But again, sometimes some, like, I can imagine not every single guard that died became an archer. Like, you don't need to be an archer in real life to become a skeletal archer, because I don't think there are that many guards that were archers to die in those places. So I guess maybe like some like villager just died and got like reincarnated as a skeleton, and they just gave him bow and magically like gave him like the basic idea how to use it. I don't think it's like really over the top. So it will be a cool idea to do a variation, like 5 variations of a skeleton archer based on this certain like guardsman or something like this. But also this is where the problem with overly epic monsters go with a lot of games. They equip the basic skeleton with like a ragged clothes and everything, and they multiply the same skeleton like 10,000 times, and it looks exactly the same everywhere. And for me, it always looked kind of odd, kind of weird. And I always like appreciated the designs that were kind of like more uniform and allowed to reuse the same thing over and over again without questioning them. So for example, I could place this guy basically everywhere and he will fit pretty much everywhere. But if I were to like make him a guardsman and then I will place him let's say in a like really remote village, then it would not make a lot of sense for him to appear there like a guardsman. Maybe there were like no guardsmen and there are just skeletons. Like, it's kind of hard to put in words what I mean by it. I hope it's clear. But with these guys, with these monsters, I kind of go a little bit more with the universal kind of feel with them, especially since this is like the most basic monster. So if I were to, like, for example, in the future paint a unique skeleton, like a unique horror archer skeleton, a boss that is present in this certain like dungeons, then okay, then it could have like a really cool equipment to it. And if, for example, the other skeleton will be like a unique and it will be a present in like an ice tombs or something like this, then the furs are completely okay. Then it's justified to give him this. But I kind of want to go a little bit more normal with them. I don't know if it makes sense. Maybe I'm just stubborn to not add like a cool design ideas, but to be honest, I don't remember the last time when I have seen like a normal archer skeleton without like fuckload of equipment on him. Like the plain old naked skeleton, pretty much almost naked skeleton. So yeah. But okay, now coloring time. Oh, and also I make the silhouette, so when I actually have a silhouette, then I can take a sketch and clip it to the silhouette, and it kind of introduces a lot of cool textures inside the silhouette, so it looks kind of okay. And for the thing that I said about seeing the silhouette not working nicely, I don't really feel like this shape is working. So now I will basically like add some shapes to him that I feel like will benefit the entire silhouette. With things like this, usually avoid repetition of like shapes and like spaces, so these guys should be like differently placed. I feel maybe like something protruding from the neck would be a cool idea. The entire neck should be a little bit more like this. I kind of feel like it needs like an arrow in here. So basically he got shot through the back, because if the skeletons are like standing, they are like shooting in front. So if a skeleton is in front of the rest of the skeletons, basically gets shot on the back. So all the arrows that are protruding through him should be visible from the back. If we would say they just basically shoot at each other by accident. So yeah, and the general rule of thumb, 3 is always better than 2. So if you are going to draw some arrows, then just basically some details, just always go for the uneven numbers. Uneven numbers usually work better. They are visually a little bit less obvious. It's not like a rule, it's like a tip, but usually this tip works really, really nicely. It's kinda easier to count to 4 and to 2 and to basically like even numbers. Uneven numbers usually are a bit harder to like process quickly. Hello, Milbert. Okay, so this is the basic guy. Now let's time to shine a light onto him. So this is the basic orientation for this guy. This is, well, this is the basic orientation for this guy. And this will be the basic orientation for this guy. So the light is basically coming from the right side. And the first thing that I will do is I will give him some nice bluish colors. So how I usually add colors is I go to the brush settings, I apply color dynamics, so basically every single like stroke that I make have like a different colors to it. Oh, thanks. I hope you will forgive me for the audio quality on the first art talk because it was complete utter shit and I like had to rework it kinda, so the next podcasts have a bit better quality. So don't get discouraged by extremely low audio quality. It only gets better at this point. But I hope you enjoyed it. Soon maybe I will make another art talk or maybe like art guest with Naimul because he is going to buy himself a new equipment for the streaming and everything, because he is going to also make a YouTube channel and whatnot, which is extremely cool. And is this the layer for the lines? Yep. And it will be easier to have him as a guest because the audio will simply be better. So yeah. For the quiver, I want to go with like browns, darker browns. For the cloth, also browns. And also, if you have any suggestions whatsoever how to improve the quality of the live streams, of the art talks and everything, feel free to share them with me. I will gladly read some feedbacks about it. So it will be a bit easier for me to quickly make it a better podcast. Yeah, so basically this is like the basic colors. Now I want to give him like the splashes of like this like yellows or browns on top of him, because I came up with this idea on like the first one. This is basically the first one, so I will keep like adding it because I guess it nicely differs the colors on the entire design. It just makes it look a little bit more interesting. So yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's okay. So I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. Okay, so now when the basic colors are ready, I kind of want a bit more on the head to appear this time. Now basically I will take a layer set on multiply and I will take like a darker color, like not completely dark, but a darker grays. I will take my favorite brush at the moment, lower the opacity to like 25%, so it will be much more gentle. And I can start working on the shadows. So usually with stuff like this, I almost always start with the shadows because I feel like shadows come first. Or I basically, what I could do is a little bit better idea. I will basically put him entirely in the shadow. So now he is in the shadow. And now I will mask the shadow out after I unstuck the thing. because it froze again. So the basic idea is I placed him in a really dark room, and now I will make holes in the room. So basically it will cause the light to shine through, and I can now like put light on him. So I guess this really makes sense, because basically what I'm doing right now is I am deciding where the light struck this monster. And since I'm really working with like a lowered opacity, it means I have like a really huge control over the brushes and over the light. So I can really easily decide where I want the light to reappear. So I remember the light is like from the top right part. Well, not this button. So at first I can like give like a really general light to it, to this entire silhouette. And I also have somewhere in here the reference for made out of like boxes from Proco. Yeah, it's in here. So basically with the reference I do not even need to think that much about how the light should behave on this guy, because I can see what parts of the body are in the light or that are in the shadow. So I want this hand to be a little bit more visible. Okay, I need to paint with whites to cover it. This arm will be slightly visible. Chest basically will be entirely in the shadow. Same things for here. And as you can see, the legs are pretty much in the shadow. The entire like pelvic area is in light, I mean. The entire leg is quite visible. And again, since this is like a really thin character, the rendering is a bit easier because you don't really need to worry that much about the volume. It's basically like really thin. But as you can see, it gives really quickly a basic idea on how the light behaves on this silhouette. And now in here I can really like work the brush like this, let's say 50%, and I can add some like smaller shadows on the ribs, so the entire thing will have a bit more details to it. The hand and the bow I want to be in light, the arrow I want to be in light, at least the top part of the hand I want to be lit. The fingers will be a bit more lit, not this finger. Small areas like here will be in the shadows for all the muscles and everything. The tricep, all the scapula muscles in here would kind of like give me some shadows. And if you're working on something for like some period of time, always remember to like rotate the screen, because it will like unlock the way that you are perceiving the thing that you are drawing, so it will be a bit easier for you to see if you are like making any dumb mistakes. So rotating a screen always is a good idea. Basically the entire head will be in light, and the eye socket will be a bit in the shadow. And again, this is not like the final rendering, and this is like part of it. And now what is also really cool with this method, I can like take the color and just refine the edges, because not every edge looks okay. I don't want everything to be like this jagged as it is right now. So I can kind of like refine the silhouette. And this is also like a huge bonus of working like with layers and everything, because it kind of allows you to like reworks these things pretty much all the time. And for the details, like some shit like basically hanging from him, I will just like draw them into the silhouette, or maybe not even to the silhouette, I will like draw them into the line art. So it will also like give a little bit more believability. So you will kind of have like some stuff hanging from him. The bow, I can imagine the bow being kind of like disgusting and having all the things like hang from him. So basically now I'm adding like the tetrary type of details to the silhouette to kind of like make it a little bit more like disgusting, creepy, and everything. It just makes the entire drawing a bit nicer. So maybe it's like some hairs, maybe it's some like stuff grew on him, some moss, like basically all the things that you don't really care about that much. Let me just put the leg into the shadow a bit more. And I want the bow to be in here in a bit more of the shadow. And the bottom part of a bow will be in the shadow. Not the bottom part. Yeah, basically the bottom part, like the edge will be only in the light. And now also, as you can see, the bottom part of the head, the cranial, yeah, not the cranial, the back of the head is a bit darker. The face is a bit darker. Don't really like this shape in here. And also the cool part is the more I will spend on this, like on this part of a drawing and a painting, the better and it will look later. So if you really want to make your drawing pop out really, really nicely, then really work on your shadows, because this is like one of the most important things that will kind of determine if the drawing looks okay or if it does not. So working on the shadow is really crucial for every single like artwork that you will do. Also in one of the books, or I guess it was like a magazine that I bought like back in the days about anatomy and everything, there was a really nice quote that where the shadow meets the light, the brain reads the form. So kind of like supports the idea of the shadows being like extremely important for your piece to read correctly, for your piece to read nicely. So yeah, but if I have like the really basic rendering done, now I will add some lights to it. So the way I usually add light is through the overlay layer and the screen layer. So usually I make like the adjustment layer, I place it to the overlay, and I simply paint with light. I like the overlay because it kind of like overexposes some of the things that are underneath, so it kind of like affects the shadow a bit, and it kind of gives it like this a bit more like rough look to it, I would say. Because for example, if I take screen, it makes everything like really bright and kind of flat. The color dodge does the same thing, lighter color, same thing, but the overlay and the softlay kind of make the thing to pop out a bit. And this is like the quality that I really like. As far as I know, using overlay to add colors, to add light, is not really a valid way to add, to make a light on your piece. But I guess for this, like, let's say style in particular, it really works well. And in here also I am using the texture brush, so the light is also not really like soft. It also like has a bit of like texture to it, and the textures or something on something that is that simple is a thing that can really work wonders, because I kind of want like use every single cheap effect that I can use to make those guys look better. And I feel like the overlay really works nicely. And if I play a bit with the sliders in the layer styles, then I can even stylize it a bit more nicer. Hello, Naimu. Ah, cool. I'm doing another skeleton because I randomized another skeleton. So this is the skeleton number, I don't know which one. Like the skeleton number 8 or whatever. And I'm 100% sure the next randomizer, the next random thing also will be a skeleton. Like I'm completely convinced it will be. So now basically I group everything. By everything I mean everything with the line art. So basically by everything I mean everything with a line art. So basically I duplicate the thing and I work on the duplicate, because if something like happens bad to it, I want to always have like a backup plan. So yeah. Have you seen? Ooh, nice. Yeah, hell is really hard, especially if you play like with the barbarian. Then it's basically almost impossible if you don't know how to play it nicely. But have you seen all the mods and everything? For example, Mr. Llama recently have been playing with a mod that caused all the monsters to be 45 multiplier on all the monsters. So basically you have like 45 times more monsters on the screen. It looked kind of cool. Yeah, so here it is. For the aerial perspective, because in my case it is kind of important, I will go with like the gray color. So everything that is behind the main body will be kind of like washed out with the grays. So when I like remove, wait, I went a bit too far here. When I like remove it from the places what that shouldn't be grayed out, you will see what I mean. Yeah, especially with the randomizer, he had like thing that was causing to cast a nova after he kills something, and it basically, if you kill one monster, then you basically kill every single monster, like a proximity. Okay, so basically it's a little bit more grayed out. I never really liked Druid. It's like the only like class that I really don't like. So now what I want to make is I want to introduce a bit more color to the head, because as you can see the head got kind of washed out. So I choose like this brownish color and I go with the multiply. So I basically make the entire silhouette a bit darker. And now again with the layer styles, I can kind of like, I don't even need to do it that much. So basically now I will like add manually a little bit more light to it. As I said, I never really liked Druid. It always appears to me like just it was weird. Like it's even hard tell what was not working, in my opinion, with the druids, but there's always was something wrong with them that I never really liked. And also now, I am kinda also color picking a bit from the previous designs, because why not? I know these colors worked, so now they will also, or they should work again. So now there will be a little bit more painting instead of a drawing, but it is completely fine with me. Not everything needs to be drawn. Now some things will be painted. That kind of changes the original purpose of this challenge, but things gotta evolve. I heard Hades is actually one of the best games out there at the moment, but I have not played it. Now I'm grinding on Hunt Showdown because there's an event and I really want a Plague Skin Doctor. Like I really want to get like a skin of a Plague Doctor. So whenever I have like a free time or whenever I finish like a job or work or whatever, I just go play and I hunt skins in Hunt. Huh, yeah. I remember there was a build with the barbarian that you could like use some item to change into like the bear, and you could use like this huge hammer, this huge hammer, and basically you can like pretty much destroy every single thing out there. I don't remember the item. I only like played it once, but it was fun. This was like the only instance when I actually enjoyed anything that was related to druid. And I feel in Diablo 4 the druid will be like one of my favorite classes because it basically looks like a forest barbarian. So yeah. The family of ugly ass monsters. I really also like the hair on this guy. And I forgot about this part on the side of the skull. So I will add it now because it adds a nice depth and shape to it. And this is the first guy to actually get ears. These guys do not have ears. These ones do not even have like an ear hole. So definitely an improvement for them. And also there are this really cool detail that I always enjoy adding to a monster. This like lever spots. Actually like any type of spots on a body. It always looks cool as like this small like surface detail. Now I will add some light here and there. Actually, like one of the coolest details that you can do is to like start with something a bit darker, then add like a light, like as I do in here. I always really like this, how this looks like create like this sharp edge between something dark and something that is really light. It always felt as something that is really nice. So the challenge went in a direction where I actually paint a bit more instead of a drawing, but I guess this is how it was supposed to be all along. And the second part that you usually should take a bit more care of are the hands, because after the face, I guess even it's this scientifically proven that we tend to look at the hands later as a second thing that we visually like perceive as the most important, because you can really tell a lot about a person from the look of their hands. So if you have to spend like some time or on something, if you are drawing or painting something, let this be hands. So in this guy, I feel like they should be a little bit more like creepy and destroyed, as pretty much everything in this guy is. But yeah, nothing really too original with this guy. And I really want to make this edge to shine a bit more, so you could actually see a thickness to the bow. And the cloth in here also should like catch a bit of a light. Not much, but a bit. And if you have an arm, there's like this bony thing in here from the forearm bones, so it should be visible in here because it makes like a really cool detail. I wish in here to be like some negative spaces, so the whole thing will look not as crowded. And now it introduces a really nice detail in there. This arrow thingy in the back. And also what is really cool about this style, what I really enjoy, is like kind of like a mix of drawing and painting, because I have like a background in mostly traditional drawing, so anything that kind of revolves around drawing a bit more is really enjoyable for me. So yeah, and this is I kind of guess why I guess it kind of went into this direction of like mix between drawing and painting, because this is like the things that I enjoy the most. And for like a quick adding some lights, I usually use the dodge tool. So basically a dodge tool, highlights for like 10% or something like this, because with some like slight taps, it really allows you to bring like a lot of lights in here. If you turn off the protect tones, then it will like make everything lighter in a little bit more unified way. So it won't like only overexpose the things that are already bright. I really like the facial expression on this one. It looks kind of like dumb, and it looks kind of tormented, which really fits to this character, I guess. I don't really like the shape of the legs. I think they deserve to get a little bit more thickness here and there, and some things hanging from them. A bit light on the cloth. And I feel like the wrap around his like not ankle, wrist will like really fit to this guy. So I basically will like take the dark color and basically draw it. Then I will kind of like add some like shading to it. I feel like this is like the type of a detail that kinda fits to him. And I feel the head should be a bit brighter, so I will take a bit more gray. Usually also this is like the thing that I always do to every single thing that I draw, is I like take a really bright color, like, I mean not color, a really bright shade, a really dark shade, and then I go to the overlay, and it kinda makes the bottom part a bit darker and the top part a bit lighter, which really makes the character pop out. So basically, if, let me turn everything else off. Wait, not off, I will like move it to the side. Delete some of the layers that I do not need anymore. But if you were to like see this guy and this guy, well, there's a crossbow attached to this one, and I will press Control Y. I will even make it a little bit more visible. If I will go to like 50%, this one has applied 20%, it makes the top part pop out a little bit more because the local contrast in here is a bit like higher, it's a bit bigger than in here. So usually this is the thing that I do for the characters to like pop out a bit more. Like the hand gets slightly darker because it's less important, the face it's a bit brighter because it's a bit more important. 50% is a bit of a stretch. I guess like 30% works best. So let me connect it. Well, do not change the thing. Let me remove this guy. It means this guy has the crossbow attached to him permanently. That is the case. And again, the back leg should be really slightly brighter, more washed out than the front leg, because it's a bit more in the distance. So I will like wash it out, but really lightly, and I will remove the excess wash with the texture. So the wash will also like introduce some texture to the entire drawing and painting. And now on the face, I will just work a bit more on the details. So I guess 2 hours with something, and it will be done. I really wonder what I will like randomize next. I really feel it will be another skeleton. It will really crack me up if this is the case. The good part is I will get rid of all the skeletons really quickly, which is fine. The bad part is the stream will get extremely boring. So yeah. Also, if any of you like makes any type of a drawing that is related or even is the topic that I have in here, feel free to share them. I will gladly like show them in some places if you do so. So don't be afraid to post yours if you do something. Some lines. I kind of keep it like a bit messier for like a reason, because if I like zoom out a bit, then the whole thing will look most likely a bit better. So some highlights, because it will gather some highlights on the top. Also notice how cool, in my opinion, you can make a blue color like shine if you use this like light skin tone mixed with it. So instead of like using brighter blue to make the blue hues brighter, I use like a completely different hue, so it kind of introduces a little bit more of the interesting details to the surfaces. really want to make this whole school a bit more 3D. It's like this. Simple reworks and everything. Those muscles in here are really cool. I always enjoyed how you can like show the things happen on the back with all the like small like lines in here. Daniel Peacock does it masterfully. Recently I had a pleasure to have him on the Art Talk podcast, I guess. And he kind of gave me some ideas how to approach drawing anatomy and everything. So here it is. Yep. And this area needs a slight more touch to it. The tricep to pop out a bit more, but not to be as shiny. Elbow area. And the last detail this guy will get is actually some sting to him. Or maybe not even a sting. Maybe I only need to like remove some of these guys in here. And I need to show that these are coming from the head. That these are like the single hair strands. So maybe stuff like this will work. I guess he needs to have something like wrapped around his neck. Like some sort of a thing hanging from the neck. I feel like, yeah, it makes the entire neck look extremely long. Let me make the neck a bit shorter. The whole neck also got a bit thicker than I wanted, but I kind of like how thick it is. The last thing is I will go to Liquify. I don't know if you will be able to see the Liquify window. You won't. But the Liquify basically allows to quickly, like rework a little subtle things without needing to repaint them. So I will add a little bit more curvature to the back, into the whole face. So you will soon see the outcome of it. But it basically makes, like, removes the need for the painting. So as you can see, I slightly changed the shapes so they flow a bit nicer, I would say. And to make a shadow for this guy, I duplicate the entire silhouette, I make it darker, I copy it, I lay it on the ground. It really works much nicer when you have the legs really close to each other, because now, as you can see, like one leg, if one leg fits, the second leg do not really fit, but it gives you like a really general idea on how the shadow could look like. So in this case, the only thing that you really need to make is to kind of like rework one leg, because like this is really an approximation for the shadow, but it works well enough. So I use this method really quite a lot. It do not really looks like a mistake. I can imagine the shadow look like this. Maybe like this area will be a bit like fuller. The head will be a bit rounder and everything. But since I am usually like removing the back part of the shadow, so it looks a bit more like a sketch. Like the shadow gets something like this to happen, then I guess it is more than fine. If you feel like reworking it, Sometimes I also do like the sketching on some edges, so the shadow visually gets like blurred out a bit, not as sharp. But yeah, basically this is how I approach shadows in this challenge, and I kind of feel like this shadow is a bit too thick in here. So yeah, basically this is the final. I guess I won't touch him much more. Maybe only I will add a bit of dimension to the arrowhead in here, like a really subtle shading because it looked kind of flat. And maybe only since all these guys in here have like some basic shading, maybe also this guy in here should get some, to not like be this dark. But yeah, I also don't like the fact that this area is like having the same angle, so I will just rotate it. And this is this guy finished. So I again duplicate it, I connect the shadow to the skeleton, I place the skeleton on the layers to this group, and to add a stench to him, because I can imagine some like flies flying around him. I have, well, where is the cursor? I have like some brushes with the dust, not with the CS map, but with some like dots. And you can like, this one do not really look nice. Need to find the right brush to it. This also looks like a debris, not like flies. And this looks like stench. So I add like some clicks with it. And I take a really similar brush with like dust particles, and I remove a dust with the dust. So it will randomly remove some of the dots. And if I feel it's not removing enough, I will simply remove it a bit manually. So there's like debris floating around. So I guess this is the finish for this guy. This is how the final horror looks like. And now it's time to randomize the next monster, which please don't be a skeleton. And this is a number 6. So let's see what is under the number 6. This is another skeleton, a corpse axe this time. So the curse of the skeletons continues. Here we have a corpse axe. So this time we will be doing this guy, but with a little bit more flesh on him. And yeah, another skeleton. Who would have guessed? So we have already done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 skeletons. 4 of them, I guess, were in a row. So yeah, corpse axe. So with this nice thing at the end, I will end the stream. Thanks anyone for watching. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the stream. Maybe you learned something new. Thanks a lot, and have a good day or night or whatever. And yeah, see ya. Till the next time.